In this episode, we are going to be reviewing the classic film noir from 1949, White Heat, which starred the great Jimmy Cagney, Virginia Mayo, Edmond O'Brien, Margaret Wycherly, and Steve Cochran. It was written by Ivan Goff, Ben Roberts, from a story by Virginia Kellogg. Welcome to Robert Bellissimo at the Movies. This is a video podcast where I explore movies from all over the world and talk about how those stories were told on film. I want to welcome back Duke Haney, who's been on the show a few times. He is a fantastic writer of these great book, Death Valley Superstars. One of the chapters is on Steve Cochran, and he's in this film, White Heat, that we're talking about today. Also, Subversia and Banned for Life. Duke, welcome back. Always a pleasure.
The pleasure is all mine, I'm sure, Robert.
I was excited about this one. I haven't seen it in quite some time, so I watched it again, of course, before our discussion. And I always thought of it as a gangster film, and then it's only in recent years a lot of people, scholars, consider it a noir. Not that you have to necessarily pigeonhole it, but I don't know how did you ever see this as a noir, or what did you think?
From the very beginning, yeah, I saw it as a film noir. I mean, there are these hybrids of noir and gangster films. In fact, Steve Cochran did another little known film called Highway 301, which is really, really good.
Right, yeah.
That's a similar hybrid of noir and the gangster film. I mean, they were always very, very close, the two of them, I think. I mean, there usually were a lot of noir elements in gangster films.
That's true.
You'll see more of it in some cases than you will in others. So I don't really know. I mean, we got into this discussion a little bit last time about definitions of noir, and I'm not strict about definitions. It's more a thing of knowing something when I see it.
Right.
And
yeah.
There's something about the mood and the perversity of this film, or the characters in the film.
Yeah.
That makes it more somehow more noir in character. The gangster film very often follows the sort of Shakespearean trajectory of the rise and fall of someone. This film, definitely shows you the fall of Cody Jarrett, but the gang is all firmly in place at the beginning of the film. And in fact, I mean, to some degree, it's really. I guess this is characteristic of so many gangster films. It's really the story of a family.
Yeah.
Or actually maybe a couple of families. There's the original family, which has all of the the family drama, or what Freud called family romance. And then in a sense, Cody Jarrett sort of becomes part of the family of the prison, the larger family of the inmate population. And then there's also the sort of rival family of the cops, of the police.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Anyway, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I actually that didn't dawn on me, because it's true. You do not get his backstory and like or how he became a criminal. And I imagine I'm not sure if you know this, but I just heard earlier Eddie Muller on TCM, when they showed this at that time, because of like the McCarthyism and the blacklist. You couldn't show characters empathizing with them as to how they became criminals, which usually was because of something that they were poor, which we saw in the gangster films in the 30s, that they were sort of pushed into it. They didn't have, the choices were limited. And in this case, you get the impression it had more to do with his mother, that his mother was pushing him into it, because his father was insane and died in a institution or something. But it just seems like it's more of an Oedipus complex, as opposed to that they were poor. I mean, I suppose you can imagine that they came from some kind of hard scrabble existence, but you don't really know, and it's really just he gets those headaches off the top, and you find out later that he had headaches as a child to get his mother's attention, and now they turned into something much more real, and obviously he's a psychopath in itself. So that's true. They're on the run from the beginning. They steal this 300 grand, and from this train, and they go, and the whole thing's one big chase. What's so interesting about it is that it's quite a thick plot, but has these really colorful characters. So what was your impression of Cody Jarrett, played by Cagney? I mean, how did you see him?
Well, the first time I saw the film, I thought that the performance is one of the greatest in the cinematic history. Watching it again, I wasn't quite as blown away by it, which may have just had to do with the conditions in which I saw the film. I was talking with you before you hit record that I was having problems with. I had gotten a DVD from eBay, and I was like, screaming at the DVD player, and but I could sort of see the more of the design in the performance. I mean, I could sort of see it, the stitching, and I could sort of see how it had all sort of been put together. I was a little bit less blown away by it, but it's an arguably a colossal performance. In terms of the character, we do pick up a little bit about his background. He appears to have inherited insanity from his father.
Yeah.
We're told that his father died in a mental institution, and at one point in the film, Cagney is about to be carted off to the what they call in the film, the nut house.
Right.
But he manages to break free, of course, right before that all happens. We're also told that there was apparently an older brother before Cagney. The sort of Ma Barker character in the film. Maybe she's a little bit like Joe Kennedy. It's if one son goes down, then the next son will sort of come in to become the anointed one. And so she has sort of gone, apparently, from the husband to the older brother, and now this is sort of her last hope. Is Cody. And one significant role that she plays for him is that she's very aware of how these headaches, I don't know if they're meant to be migraines. I guess they're what we can diagnose as movie headaches. So how these headaches sort of will make him appear weak in the eyes of his underlings. And so when one is coming on, she sort of pulls him out of view of the others, and sort of talks him through it, and she basically is giving him gangster lessons the whole way. And significantly later, when Cody turns himself into prison to beat a murder rap, he would have been facing a murder rap, but he turns himself in to effectively, in a strange way, to elude the police. There's a moment when he really bonds with the policeman.
That Edmond O'Brien plays.
Edmond O'Brien character, who's been sort of placed in his cell to sort of get him to extract a confession from him. And the Cagney character is suspicious of the Edmond O'Brien character, no matter what he does, no matter what good the Edmond O'Brien character does. The Cagney character is suspicious, remains suspicious of it, because he has those, finely honed instincts. Clearly he knows something is not quite right about this guy. He's a little too good to be true. But significantly, the bonding really occurs when Cody Jarrett suddenly has one of these headaches come on.
Yes.
in the
Oh,
middle of this
yes.
workroom, and then the Edmond O'Brien character sort of steps into the role of the mother, the absent mother,
That's it.
and
That's a good.
hides
It's
him,
true. Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah,
hides him
that's when
from
it
everybody else, and
changes.
kind of
Yeah.
takes him down and kind of talks him through it,
Yeah.
but maybe the most important part of that is that it really has to do with him kind of hiding the
Yeah.
Cagney character until he can recover sufficiently as to sort of present this dominant face to the prison population.
Yeah, and
I,
that he kind of taps his face tenderly. It's
mm,
like the oh, yeah. I actually I didn't put that together. That's a good point. I mean, when you touched on something that I found so interesting about Cody is how paranoid he is, which is such a film noir trope. Suspicious of everyone to the point where he has the guy reading lips,
yeah,
which was also worked comedically, and just watching everybody, what's that guy saying, and if any little thing that he felt was about him, he's ready to fight, he's ready to shoot. And you see even at the beginning, I mean, when those poor guys, and they rob the train, he shoots them for no reason at all. And that other guy who's with them, he gets burnt with the steam. And I mean, they were just going to leave him out in the mountains. I mean, even though that guy was a criminal, I still felt so bad for him. There he is with the bandages, around his face. And, Cody's just happy to let him die just to get on with, and that was totally his fault. But just the level of paranoia and how much, if Edmond O'Brien saved his life, and even to that, he was like, why are you being so nice? If anyone's nice to him, he doesn't trust him or her. He doesn't even trust Virginia Mayo, his own wife. He just doesn't trust anybody. And I imagine because in his world, he couldn't. And when his mother died, that's where, again, the doomed protagonist, Cagney, he has no chance at that point, because the only person he could trust was his mother. And then the only person he could trust after that was Edmond O'Brien. Of course, when that backfires, when he finds out he was a cop the whole time, I mean, that that it's not going to end well. I mean, that's the end of it. That's the end of it. I love the last line by Edmond O'Brien. I forgot about that. He made it to the top of the world and it blew up in his face. I mean, that's just perfect. But the level of paranoia, that was something I didn't catch before. I don't know if I mean, you mentioned it, so I'm sure you certainly saw that.
I thought it was pretty par for the course for a
Yeah.
character like that.
Yeah.
The most interesting aspect, I think, of the character really is this extremely unusual relationship that he has with his mother.
Yeah. So tender, and so like he's like a little boy with her. He's on her lap at one point in the beginning, and he says, "You're always worried about your little Cody." It's apparently that was Cagney's idea, because he had read the script, and he's like, "Oh, it's all just gangbusters, shoot him up." He's like, let's make the people more interesting. And thank God they did, because I mean, yeah, if you look at the plot, I mean, the plot's okay. It's a good plot, but I don't think people really remember the plot. I think you remember the characters. Even if you haven't seen it in years, you remember Cagney, you remember Virginia Mayo, you remember the mother, you remember these rich, kind of sick relationships, or at least that's me.
No, I think that's precisely it. I think there's a few things. When I first saw the film, the thing that was very striking almost immediately was just how savage the Cagney character was.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And you're like, whoa. I think that this era, this was when psychoanalysis began to trickle down to the masses. I mean, previously, it seems to me that it was only socialites, for example, who might be seeing psychoanalysts, but a lot of the ideas were definitely beginning to trickle down to the masses by then, and so the whole idea of an Oedipal complex, for example, was maybe at that time beginning to go top 40.
Yeah.
And I mean, in a sense, Cody Jarrett is a distant relative of Norman Bates.
Oh, that's interesting. That's really interesting. That's true. I didn't see that. Yeah, that's a good point.
So he sort of has, he really truly cannot function without his mother.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
even though he's married to, this hot former hooker, I think that seems to be her earlier. I mean, at one point they make a remark in the film. What I think Virginia Mayo says, "What am I going to do?"
right.
While he's off in prison, and he says, s- somebody says, "Oh, I think the mother even says, well, you can go back to doing what you're doing before."
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. They
and then
hated each
Cagney says,
other.
yeah, well, yeah, because they were rivals in a
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. I love that.
And also the mother really, I think had a very keen understanding of the wife, because she saw that the Mayo character was really only in it for the perks, for the baubles.
Yeah,
She's
yeah,
a gold digger, and
yeah.
doesn't really love Cody at all.
She doesn't. She yeah, was she. You know what was so interesting about that relationship was that um, she she was, I mean, everybody, I mean, betrayal is such a major theme in this film, and everyone betrays everybody. Like the only one who doesn't betray the other person is Cody and his mother. But everybody is betrays every single character. And even when Cody realizes that his mother was killed by, well, he thinks it was Cochran's character, but it was actually Virginia Mayo's character, and and he believes her when that one is such a great scene where he breaks out of jail and he throws her up against the car, and he's was ready to kill her in that moment, and I'm not really quite sure if she convinces him that, oh well, Steve Cochran's basically talked her into it, and I was surprised that he didn't also want to blow her away, but I think it was because that's he was getting something from her, which ultimately was a sexual relationship. But Cochran, he was ready to just not. He was like he was going to kill him no matter what. But I was really surprised by that. I thought, how could he have believed that? I don't know what you thought about that. I thought that it's interesting.
I didn't particularly question it, but now that you mention it, it's right that it's really more in keeping with his character that he would have killed her after killing
Yeah,
the Steve Cochran character. Cochran is really only in the film for about maybe 5 scenes altogether, but he really pops in this film.
yeah. No, I agree.
He really makes a strong, really vivid impression in the film.
Yeah, and you can see early on that he was not liking, how trigger happy Cody was. I mean, just sort of that he's just too much. He's too psychotic. You can see the wheels begin to turn with his character. I know that he's in your book, the essay. Did you find out much about him and on this film? Was there much about him and Cagney, or I know he knew Virginia Mayo because that you mentioned that.
They were almost like a team. They had done because they were both under contract to Sam Goldwyn earlier in their careers, and she was the frequent leading lady of Danny Kaye. Apparently, she disliked Danny Kaye, and Cochran was in a couple of Danny Kaye movies. But anyway, he was teamed with her about 5 times. Also in The Best Years of Her Lives.
Oh, right.
They were together in that. And it was implied very strongly in the film that he had been bonking her while Danny Andrews was away. So she knew him very well. He's a very interesting guy. He was, unfortunately, in researching him, I learned that he he was in some unfortunate ways like his screen persona. He could be abusive with women.
Right.
I mean, but he just women were just drawn to him like uh, you know steel to a magnet or something. It was just crazy how many women he had, and he was just one of those guys that just had that mojo or something.
Yeah.
And of course, he died um, uh, on a boat with an all-female crew with the three women of the boat.
Yeah. Yeah, I read that in the book. What
Yeah.
was it about him that intrigued you initially to include him in the book?
Well, I'm a big film noir fan. I had seen him first in a film noir called The Chase,
Yes.
and
Right.
there was very little out there about him, and then there was another film noir he did called Private Hell 36, which I really like. It's not particularly well made, but he's just really terrific in it. At his best, he's really good. He's a really strong actor.
Yeah.
But he gave a lot of mediocre performances also. I mean, not bad. I never saw him truly bad, but he just wasn't particularly memorable, and
Right.
was kind of by the book. Um, I had been thinking about writing something. He just struck me as a good subject for what I had in mind, because it seemed as if he was somebody who needed a writer to sort of rescue him in a way from obscurity. And so I began to look into his life, and I was able to get an audience with his second wife, who was in her 90s at the time I met her, and had a very vivid memory of everything pertaining to him. I mean, she remembered where he lived, and when they first started to go out. And I mean, you might think that that's normal, but I mean, I asked her where was he living at the time. She goes, Willoughby Avenue. I mean, she just
Oh
rattled it
wow.
right off, and had a very, very good memory of a lot of things. And of course, he was abusive toward her. They got married in 1947. He was abusive. He used to slap her around and
Mm.
cheated on her, at every turn. I think that the expression she used was, something about him being always off in the bushes with somebody else. I'd also heard that he threw, I think it was one of his other leading ladies, because he had a lot of assignations with his leading ladies. Another one cooked him dinner, and she didn't prepare gravy, and he got mad at her because there was no gravy in his dinner, and he threw her out of a window, like a second-story window.
Holy
Um,
shit. Wow.
that's in the book. I know that he did this film. He was under contract, as I said, to Sam Goldwyn, and then the contract with Goldwyn ran out. Actually, he was Columbia uh, had sort of owned half his contract, and so he was making movies at Columbia and at Goldwyn. And then he ran afoul of Harry Cohn, the
Oh, the head of
head of
Columbia.
Columbia,
Yeah.
because Steve Cochran was an octopus, and Carrot Cohn went up to him and said, "This is according to Steve's second wife, went up to him and said, um, you keep away from my girls." And Cochran said, "All right, Mr. Cohn, just tell me which girls are yours, and we're okay." And so, according to the second wife, she said, "Gone. He was
Oh wow.
gone."
Oh wow.
Got rid of him. That was the end of him at Columbia. So then his contract with Goldwyn ran out, and he went to do a play with Mae West on Broadway. She was doing a revival of She Done Him Wrong, and he started a thing with Mae West
Yeah.
that
I
went on
remember
for a
that
long time.
in the book as well.
Yeah, they had an ongoing thing for, I think, quite a while.
Wow.
And he was signed by Warner's at that point. And I think this is the first movie he did for Warner's.
Cagney was away from Warner's for a number of years, and as I'm sure you know, he didn't want to do any more gangster films, but I think he had a couple of flops under his belt at this point, so he needed a sure win. And as he put it, well, people like to see me in these kind of roles, but he didn't want to, he was sick of being someone who's pushing around women and hitting women and shooting, the gangster type. But I mean, he's so good in it. I mean, he's always just he's so great. And you can't. I mean, I know everybody talks about the jail scene, of course, where he finds out his mother dies, and he has a breakdown. I mean, it's quite astonishing. I mean, for anyone who, and this is usually people who don't know anything before 1980 in movies, or
that's most people, Robert.
When people say acting was bad back then, this is just an example of, I mean, that scene in particular is it's quite stunning, how he freaks out. And this is so well known, but they didn't tell anyone what he was going to do. Whatever the scene was, it wasn't working. And when you see the extras, they all turn, and you could tell it's not just an AD that said, okay, at that point, turn and look, because this guy's going crazy. You could see them jump. I mean, it's everybody responds. I mean, it is such a wow. It's such a it's just top-notch acting.
For him, this would have been the ultimate humiliation for him to have shown himself to be as vulnerable as he makes himself at that moment. But of course, he puts a spotlight on himself by jumping onto the table, and
right.
But no, it's Cagney is just no, he could do everything.
Yeah,
I mean, he could. There's nothing he couldn't do.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And he's always just riveting, no matter what. And apparently he was very calculating. He thought a lot about little things he would put in business. I guess his performances
the
are full
details.
of a lot of business, right?
I really wonder, the moment where he finds out that O'Brien is a cop, and the lines are along the lines of, I've treated him like a kid brother, and he's a copper, and he's laughing, like he took it from that. He didn't play it where I think a lot of people would be tempted to be very furious, and he plays it from the point of view of like, oh my God, I can't believe I fell for it. I just thought that was such a wonderful way to whether he just responded that way, or if he took it from that point of view, made a choice to take it that way, so he would respond that way. I don't know.
He just seems to have just lapsed fully at that point into madness, and that's one of the reasons that I think that the film certainly qualifies as film noir. There's a lot of fatalism in film noir. Sort of the inevitable doom, and Cagney, there was no way that he would ever have escaped the madness of that ran in his blood.
The other scene I just wanted to mention, which was a key moment also, is when he opened up so much to Edmond O'Brien about, after his mother died, and he's talking about how he was out there talking to her, and which is, it's interesting because at that point he also was suspected that O'Brien was trying to run, because he's fighting one of the guys, and he's where are you going? And he makes up this whole story about wanting to go see his wife, and he believes him. And what's interesting is that every time he believes people is when he gets hit, like kicked in the nuts the most. He believes him, and then he gets caught in the end. And he believed Virginia Mayo. Well, you're not really sure about that. and even when he believes her, whether he believed her or not, at the end, I love that scene where at the cop, she's like, oh, I'll talk him out of coming out of there, as long as you get, maybe let me off the hook. And when he says no, right away, she's like, you two-bit copper. Like she's such a con, she's great at that femme fatale of using seduction and flirting. But I love how she just switched. As soon as he says no, you see who there's that angry person.
You get the real person. You get the real
person. Yeah.
You get the real deal there.
Well, Duke, thanks again for coming on.
Well, thanks, Robert.
Always a pleasure. And again, Death Valley Superstars, I really enjoyed, and the Steve Cochran essay, for anyone interested. And Steve, the whole book is a series of essays on different figures from pulp culture and somewhat autobiographical as well. And Steve Cochran is one of the subjects in the film, as well as Elizabeth Taylor and Chris Jones.
Oh, in the book, you mean? Yeah.
Sorry, in the book. It's not a film yet. And
Yeah,
so many. So I know you can get it on Amazon and
everywhere. You can get. I mean,
you can get pretty
it.
much anywhere, right? Okay, great. Well, thanks again, Duke, and please come again.
All right, thanks again, Robert. Thanks for having me again.
Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. If you are currently listening to this now on the audio version of the podcast and you've run out of episodes to listen to on there, head over to the YouTube channel, where there are a lot more options. Every single episode I've ever recorded is on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Robert Bellissimo at the movies. I am also on Patreon. For those of you who don't know what Patreon is, it is an exclusive membership program where you pay a monthly fee, just a few bucks a month, for all kinds of bonus content that you vote on, that I put out every single month, all sorts of different options that are related to film noir and all kinds of different movies. Head over to patreon.com/Robert Bellissimo at the movies for full details. Also, please comment, give us a like, give me a like on this video as well. It really helps a lot in order to attract more viewers over to my channel. And lastly, if this is your first time here, please consider subscribing by pressing the Robert Bellissimo at the movies logo. You will see it floating above my head right here to your top left in just a second. Just click on that and then click the bell in order to get a notification every time I release a new video or when I am live on YouTube. Thank you so much, everyone. I will see you in the next episode.